Thank you very much for everyone who joining the fourth Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum. And we are hosting these meetings on June as it is still during pandemic. And my name is Soyang Park, and I'm the founder of this forum, as well as a professor in the Faculty of Arts and Science and Graduate Studies at OCADU. And you're gonna see me in a minute again for the opening remarks. So we are having 2 days event for this forum, course event, May 28th today between 1 to 6 p.m. And also we have a second day event, 29th Saturday, tomorrow. So you are welcome to join tomorrow around exactly same time. Now, let me, oh, yes, my slide is frozen again, yes. So here, Kathy Wang, could you please start the event with land acknowledgement, please?
Hello. OCADU University acknowledges the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land in which we stand and create.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we constantly hearing the sounds of people joining now. As we are here again to create the culture of lively discussions on the research we have been doing. And let me just read out our mission statement again. Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum is forum of lively discussion of Asia and Asia Global related art, design, culture, and media and creative strategy and research. Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum does not support any form of ethnocentric or regional chauvinism or hegemonic nationalism unfit for our vision for the future. It solely focuses on promoting cosmopolitan learning and exploration of cultures tasked with a multi-directional decolonization. Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum supports the emergence of other cosmopolitan research groups and fora at OCADU based on non-hierarchical and non-exclusionary notion of regional, national, ethnic, and cultural identities. Not only at OCADU, but beyond OCADU, of course. Let me just quickly also introduce the important people behind this forum who have been carrying on this. Sorry about my misuse of buttons, so just slightly shifted. So this forum is facilitated by myself, Soyang Park, and we have 4 tiers of presenters. All other publicity material, we use the language of 3 tiers, and I just realized that I need to revise it. So the 4 tiers of presenters consist of students, professors, professionals, and activists. And we have one also invited guest today on that category as well. And Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum strives to be a participatory forum where a presenter, discussant, and audience play equally important roles. And it is an ongoing forum. We have been hosting events regularly from May 2009. And we open for public submission of ideas and always contact us. And I also want to introduce the coordinators for the 4th forum. Sorry about the typo here, HTTH 4th forum. Kathy Wang, one of our longest serving member, has been acting as a senior coordinator, and also Jessica Liu, who designed the posters last and this time's event poster designed by our drawing and painting students, Jessica Liu, and Jamie Park, newly joined as a team of coordinator, and Maari Sugawara, who had to fly to Tokyo urgently due to family situation, currently supporting the event from Tokyo. And today I also want to announce a few names of designated discussants. Again, the discussant culture in this forum is not necessarily those who are designated to read or in conversation with a presenter previously and prepare the questions. It's not that. It's more of immersive model where they are invited because of their the finest and a proven intellectual enthusiasm and spirit of participations. And thus they will be there and always support with interesting, provoking questions when by any chance silence taking place after interesting presentations or in the exchange of different ideas. So Aaron Tang, a lecturer of creative writing, I need to do organize. I need to admit people as well. My goodness. Aaron Tang, a lecturer of creative writing, the University of Guelph, and Timothy Zhou, who's a graduate of graphic design and integrated media, OCADU, are joining as a discussant. This is also important acknowledgement. For all this OCAD events, we are recording the event for the publicity purposes. So let me just read out what is officially posted in Eventbrite and any other publicity material, just in case that you are concerned with copyright issues or your portrait right issues. So please be advised that OCADU hosts events may be documented through photography and video. These meetings also will be recorded throughout for archiving as well as publicity purposes. And these images may be used by university for and OCAD or our forum for promotional, advertising, educational purposes. By participating in our events, both on campus and off-site, you consent to allowing OCAD University to document and use your images and likeliness. However, if you do not want us to use a photo or video of you or your children or part of any of images of you, please let us know. Leave your name I think not Zoom ID, leave your name and email addresses. You are welcome to get in touch with us via email after the event. As our coordinators are slightly busy with the different tasks right now, let me just announce this important proceedings related instructions. So to participate in this event, I just want to share that today we have event from 1 to 6 p.m. and there are breaks. So we're going to have a presentations. Presentations by professors are 50 minutes allocated to speak, 30 minutes and maybe for a lecture and 20 minutes for Q&A. And rest of the categories of presenters, students, professionals, 25 minutes. So 15 minutes of speech and 10 minutes of Q&A. So please look forward to it while you're listening to the speech, and you have a chance to ask questions right after the designated lecture or speech or talks. There will be 2 breaks after roughly 3 presentations or 1 hour, 30 minutes presentations. So if you see the event schedule, we didn't indicate that, but we have 10 minutes break after 1 hour and 30 minutes, which I'm going to show you in a minute, roughly what time it will be. And also there's a second break after another 2 presentations has been delivered. For instance, Ilong Louis and Jamie Barr delivered the speech, and then there is a break of 5 minutes before we move on, Art to Protest and Memory. And during the event, audience, please turn off your mic during presentations because there is various environmental sound or a mistake you can make and your sound can affect flow of presentations. But as soon as we start the Q&A, you can turn on your mic when you have questions and comments. So that's just simple rule to follow. There are three ways you can ask questions and make comments. And so to make this forum truly lively and participatory. So what is most preferred mode is turn on your video and mic, like many of us do here. So we can feel like we are in the same room together, most recommended. Or if you don't want to share your video, you can also just use your mic, turn on your mic only, again, recommended, please. Then if you just still don't like any of the options, please write questions in chat box, which however is less recommended. Why? Because there will be so much task that our coordinator playing and we want. And the third options, if you write something, it can be actually not taken as a priority. If other people are speaking with the videos and through the voices, your question can be just somewhat marginalized or not taken into the table. It's not tabled until, because the other two modes of questions are somewhat prioritized because of just the way system is designed. So use the raise your hands button. There is a raise your hands button, I think in Zoom. So you raise your hands button, and we're gonna give you instructions. So pretty easy. So the first, maybe 2 hours, Jamie Park, our coordinator, will review the chat box occasionally to see if there is any questions. After 3:55, Jamie Park finished her duty, and then Jessica Lee will take over the reviewing the chat box questionnaires. Right. Do you have any comments and questions, by the way? Anything that's because I was focusing on my screen and wasn't necessarily looking at the other chat box, because again, when I file share, I cannot see anything else except the faces of a few of you who share the video, and anyone else. Is it Kathy or Jamie? Are we doing okay?
We're doing great.
Okay, thanks a lot. So let me just quickly move on. So I need to time myself right now. What time is it now? 1:10-ish time. And I need to manage my time as well. So this is opening remarks by myself, and I entitled the remarks as Pandemic, Censorship in Asia Voices. These are some of key points I just want to deliver, and I'll try to condense my remarks, opening remarks, as much as I can, because in the past I ended up using too much of liberty and speaking longer than I am supposed to do. And so try to be organized. And so I just realized that we are having very rainy and chilly day today instead of lovely, warm and sunny days that we used to have. However, what I would say, this is a perfect day for forum because there is no competition with a beautiful sunny days outside. So you just sitting in front of computer and engage with us. And the pandemic is continuing, as we are aware. It has been more than a year. Who have known, who have thought that we're going to have this unprecedented lockdown of entire globe for a year. Of course, there is a variety of different approaches in different countries. For instance, in South Korea, there was no lockdown as such as we experienced here. But we are having this, hosting this forum, thus in distance, not in the same room. But ironically, this is exactly what I've said in the last forum, which is a year ago, third forum after pandemic, through the Zoom, our experimental forum, which was great success. It invited people, speakers from all across the globe. We realized, ironically, it provided more accessibilities. In terms of participants, we had people from all around the world logged on and joined our forum. So it's become new normal, the way that we host online forums. And I noticed that people become much more familiar with all these webinars, online forums, and different events happening on the internet. Important issue we also want to address through the opening remarks is the rise of anti-Asian crimes. In fact, this has been the reason and that I'm, as a founder and organizer of this event, has been quite taken down because the news of anti-Asian crimes, especially in North America, of course, to a certain degree in Europe, to a certain degree in Canada as well, has been affecting not only myself and many emotionally and physically and existentially in many ways. And so in fact, I delayed in organizing this event because I was so disturbed. And so, but some of my friends and students have been encouraging, hey, maybe this is the reason why we should organize events to be able to counter, to be able to address the issues that which has not been addressed. The 3 points I want to make here with regard to rise of anti-Asian crime that we all know, waking up in the one yet another news of random ethnic Asian people are attacked on the streets, in the Uber taxi, in the restaurant, on the random street, in front of their houses. I mean, who wouldn't be affected by it? But I also want to address that there has been great apathy over the issues of racism that has affected Asians especially. There's no secret right now, which in a way that a positive side effect of all these events and news is that there is a casual saying that, well, Asians, they are not black, they are not white. There's this third kind of categories of people who never been treated that seriously as a victim of racism, and thus important discussion that that need to arise around how to represent, properly understand this group of people has never been a priority in any of this West metropolitan society. But right now, due to the rise of crime, there has been serious concerns that Asians need to have voices, and the representation of Asians matters as well. So apathy is the points that I am expressing my concerns about. There has been great apathy toward Asians and their role and place in the society in Western metropolis via some sort of a symbolic race politics, which has been dominating in most of the Western metropolitan society. So hate is one of the violent expressions of, which sounds contradictory to the apathy. Apathy seemingly is not hurting anyone, but hate is somewhat byproduct of those apathy, which has not been addressed. What kind of experience are they having in living in a multicultural society, while they are largely, their experience is not represented. But I also want to actually make a comment. There's always temporality of any form of culture. So this rise of anti-Asian crime, which is kind of exposed, long kind of underlying misunderstanding, lack of understanding of Asian community in North American and in Western metropolitan society, now on the rise of being more recognized and spoken about, especially in the volatile space like in America, while Canada is always tend to be regarded as something that more gentler than our loud neighbors in America. So there's a less of discussion and open discussion on these matters. But culture affects us. Culture, however, also do changes, but you cannot fight with invisible. You should make it visible, meaning speak out, speak about it. Thus, we know that what we should fight for, fight against. So the lack of open discussion, the culture, which is characteristic in Canadian society, need to be tackled is one of the questions that I want to address. Thus, we prepared this forum not just to focus on a few issues, but to open our horizons. So the title we put for the day one event is Cosmopolitan Asia Speaks and Protests. And there is a double meaning behind this Asia, Cosmopolitan Asia Speaks and Protests. The double meaning here, domestically, Asians, life within Asia, there has been rise of protest culture, Asian struggle for democracy and justice. We heard about this from the Hong Kong last exactly a year ago in the forum. We talked about the Hong Kong protesters against authoritarian rule and policy from mainland China. Then it was soon followed by Thailand, the Thai struggle for and against their autocratic feudal systems. And Myanmar's struggle for democracy is currently boiling over, and there are a lot of death, brutality, and violence are taking place every day. We have in India, the farmers protest, millions of farmers has been protesting more than 5-6 months, and we happen to have students who done the research on Indian farmers protest and who are going to be presenting in this forum today. And this art, the protest culture and arts, artist reactions are some of the backbones and key focus of day one of forum, which interestingly plays to counter one of the well-known misconceptions. I have some red, orange chat thingy. Is there anyone, the coordinator, do you want to make any, is there anything that I need to be reminded of? Yeah, if you need.
It's just almost time for the performance.
Wonderful, yeah. So there is a cultural myth that the passive Asia does not protest. Asians do not protest. What are long-lasting dominant cultural misconceptions? So you're gonna see today and explore what a volatile society you're witnessing, which is in Asia, and you're gonna be revising our well-known popular misconception that Asians do not fight or do not protest and do not speak, or conformist to the authoritarian rule, etc. There's another meaning is Asia Global speaks out in the Western metropolis. So Asia do speak, Asia do protest, and it is time to break the long silence and to speak against the apathy and beyond the apathetic and culture, and also the censorship. One of the keywords that I included in my title is a censorship. You might wonder, what is the censorship is about? I want to talk about the censorship is everywhere. In fact, the marginalized voices of Asian and the kind of cultural popular image of Asian being a faithful supporter of those in power, or play the faithful supporting roles And rather than protest or reform or innovate the system, I personally have been experiencing a lot of censorship also myself from different contexts after pandemic. Merely when I speak about different approaches on health and safety issues with regard to COVID-19, there has been reports that I, as a professor, should not be speaking about those different approaches in Canadian university classroom. I should not talk about the different approaches. And I was wondering if this is not a censorship, what is a censorship? And also the censorship coming from not only from outside, but from inside as well. I just want to also address how many of us who grow up in the Western metropolis are have internalized those silencing structure, internalized I should not be speaking about this and that, and should be conforming to what is the dominant culture. So the internalized racism in some ways, internalized oppression, and you become the enemy that inflicts silence on yourself. And that is important. Also issues of censorship, internalized censorship that we, all of us, need to tackle. Otherwise, issues of invisibility of experience Asia global subject having will never be addressed. So on that note, day 2 event is entitled Cosmopolitan Asia and Creative Explosions. And you're gonna be seeing a lot of different speakers. Again, continue to address the issue I just talked about. In also context that you're gonna see the one of Sarah, Iranian artist, speaking of her experience as a diaspora living in Canada, and who will expand our horizon of what is meant to be cosmopolitan Asia. I'm not talking about Asian. Cosmopolitan Asia is beyond the geographical concept of Asia. Like yourself, Asia global, those are subjects who've been living in a metropolis for a long time. You're not a type of Asian geographically confined. You are inheritor, heir of different cultures. So I just want to suggest the forum to be a place where we can explore, expand our horizon of transnational understanding, rather than thinking what we do, what we're speaking about is something tied to narrow notion of geographical Asia or narrow definition of Asia and Asia global. Thank you very much. That is my opening speech. Now it's time to invite our mystery performers as ways to open the day. And let me stop share the screen, right?
Thank you.
Jessica, could you introduce the next speaker, if you could, please?
Yeah, next speaker is a professor at Concordia, Jinyoung Kim. Very excited. Yeah. Let me just pass on this host to her so that.
Can you pass on co-host, please? Yeah, make her co-host.
Oh, sure it is.
So
Awesome.
the presenters make each other next person, introduce a next person, and make them as a co-host, not host. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for the performance, and thank you. I guess I will start. Thank you for making me a co-host. I'm very excited to present to you this talk today. I was a discussant last year, right? It's already last year when we had a Zoom, first time the Zoom Asia Global Cultural Studies Forum. And it was a great experience, and I'm really happy to be participating as a presenter today. I'm gonna do a little land acknowledgement because I'm in Montreal, Montreal, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am sharing this talk from unceded Indigenous land, the traditional territory of Kanikihaka, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst many diverse First Nations, and continues to be home to a diverse population of Indigenous peoples. And as I have mentioned, I'm in Montreal, and it's a very sunny day. So I hear that it's very rainy in Toronto. So we have a slightly different atmosphere. Okay, well, thank you for the organizer, and I'm gonna introduce myself a little bit. I'm a professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts in Concordia University. I'm a part-time faculty. I've been teaching there for the last 6 years in photography program. And also I'm an alumni at OCAD. I did my BFA at OCAD University when it was at Ontario College of Art and Design. And I'm also an independent practicing visual artist. And a little bit of personal background because it relates to my practice very directly. I am a child of first generation immigrants from South Korea. I moved here in my teenage years. So I was born in South Korea, grew up in South Korea, half of my, I guess, childhood. And then the rest of the childhood, I became a young adult in Toronto, and then I moved to Montreal for my MFA study and ended up staying here afterwards. So, okay, I'm gonna share my screen, right? Like, shouldn't be talking to you like this. Okay, share my screen. Slide. Okay, so I still see you. That's great. So I titled my talk as Recollection in Autobiographical Art, Building a Sense of Continuity in Diasporic Experience. I intended this talk to be an artist talk, so it's not a, I guess, scholarly, like research paper based talk. So if you can allow me to just introduce what that means for me, what that means to be a diasporic, living the diasporic experience, and then translating that into art practice. So I work mainly with photography and video, and I directly source materials from things that are closest to me, namely my family relationships, the objects, and my perception of time. I make work to reflect on diasporic conditions and lived experiences of myself and my family. I collaborate a lot with my parents and my relationship with them, and how immigration or the experience of being in this condition has shifted the way we deal with the sense of place, objects, and time. And I make work based on these observations and reflections. Okay, so, yeah, okay, good. So one of my sort of consistent desire for making work is creating some kind of tangible context for the reality that I carry as a cultural being, namely a bicultural being who lives through a different sort of layers of culture and the place of difference sometimes. And I consider sort of my inner life as mostly informed by my past memories of growing up in South Korea, and I'm still sort of learning from that foundation of knowledge. Much of what happened after I relocated to Canada has been some kind of act of translation that translating the knowledge into my sort of immediate surrounding. So this sort of like act of translation and reminding myself of my past life has been some kind of connected to a mode of survival. I guess being an immigrant, maybe some of you might be able to empathize with that. So today I aim to talk about mainly two major projects that I made. And if the time allows me, if I do well with the management of time, I will make it to my latest work, my most recent project. Okay, I begin with this work. I think you see the two people who are in front of this unraveled onions. So this is a video that I made in 2015, and it's a 6-minute video of my parents trying to reconstruct an onion by sewing the skins back together. So this is a task that I actually asked them to do, and they generously signed up for such an absurd and seemingly pointless task that is also painful because it will make you cry, and it's not an easy thing to just like sit with the onion for an extended period of time. So so it's a staged situation with unscripted conversation that's happening in front of the camera. So I basically left the camera with them, and actually left the room. So I'm gonna show you the video now. How do I get out of this thing? Okay. I want to get out of my slideshow. How do I? Sorry.
To get out of your slideshow, you can press escape, and then you'll be out of your slideshow.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. I just couldn't see the my Chrome. Yeah, there you go. No. Conversation. Network error. Reload the player. Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh, you know what? I think I might have not shared my sound. Enable sound. Okay, I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I'll play excerpts of them. Just whoop. Okay. What's going on? Sorry. Is my screen sharing paused? Do you see the video or my PowerPoint?
I see only the onion parents peeling onion, the still images, not video.
Okay, give me 1 second. I thought I got this. Google Chrome. Share sound, share. Okay. There you go.
실을 이렇게 먹겠냐?
두 겹을 해가지고 탁 접어가지고
했다니까 지금.
바늘기로 쏙 밀어 넣어가지고
옛날에 할머니 내가 바늘기를 내가 닦기 줬었는데 이제 내가 그래야 됐다고. 아 모르겠다.
됐어.
안 돼. 오. 저리 깎고 해라. 나 다 했잖아. 하나 더.
에이 실 이거 버린 실로 했네.
그걸로 가.
없어 안돼 이거 저거 매듭 때문에 그러면 그 저 잘려 나와.
Okay, so those of you who are curious what's going to happen in the next 3 more minutes is basically he keeps on struggling and then talks about how this used to be easy, but it's not easy anymore. So then my mother helps him, and then he compliments her for being so good at weaving or sewing. So I mean, it's a short video, relatively short, but if you are curious about the whole thing, you can watch it on my website. I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint. The premise of this video was some kind of a semi-documentary. I wanted to play with this form of this constructed situation and how sort of the reality of things just unravel in front of the camera. And as you can see, there's some kind of verbal and physical exchanges between the couple that kind of communicates their collaborative, collaborative nature of their relationship, some kind of interdependence, and also the conversation itself came across as interesting, that how he mentions his past life, like how he mentions his life in younger self in another country. And this moment for me was where this kind of scene that is unseen from the screen kind of manifests itself from the conversation, from what he said, from this act of recollection, which also presents some kind of a gap or rupture in time in the continuous sort of paralleling the video duration of the video. And there's a parallel life that's happening that sort of shows itself very briefly through this conversation. So I was curious, I was sort of mainly interested in in that moment of manifestation of this discontinuous time. And in context of diasporic experience, of course, I kind of thought that their collaborative task of this pointless activity of sewing or weaving the onion together sort of symbolically became this image of reconstruction of their life or their identity, or it also became a documentation of marker of their physical and emotional labor that they have taken onto themselves. Okay. And so that was 2015, which is already quite old work. And as an ongoing sort of research interest, and as a someone who is entering into young adulthood, who grew up in this context of diasporic sort of the immigrant culture, I have this ongoing interest of, or more of like an obsession of thinking about home and what it means, and definitely constantly shifting the definition of home for myself and for my family and for for my community. And this questions came into materialize in my work, my next work that I will be showing you, which is called Genealogy of Stationary Objects. And going into that project, I had this question in my mind: what is the image of home for me? Which I think I was able to ask because if you feel at home, you wouldn't necessarily ask this question. But if you are not feeling at home, you would be asking these questions, right? So then I was asking, what is the image of home, and how does it make me feel right now, and how does it actually feel and smell like in actuality, in reality? So I went to my grandparents' house, which is in South Korea, in the southern part of South Korea, in Gyeongsangbuk-do, Goryeo, which is a very small town. And when I think about image of home and where I could return to in South Korea is this place, my grandparents' house, where I spent a lot of my childhood summers there. And I was claiming that place to be belonging to myself and belonging to us, to our family. So I went to that place to work on this project and stayed there for 2 months, living with them and living at the house mainly. And just recap on my. And while I was working on this project and thinking about this notion of home and how it connects physically to myself in the current state, I started to pay a lot of attention to the domestic objects and the objects that they owned in the house, but also the physicality, the structure, the architectural structure of the house itself, and how it basically feels like, how it smells like, how it made me, how it makes, how does it stand, how is this condition, material condition. And I thought of this place as a symbol of potential sort of substantial home for me, psychological home, because I identified the house as full of agents that trigger this process of recollections that was able to contextualize my being materially. And then, but mainly the motivation going into that project was for me to close the gap of my absence from the country and from this place, because at this point I was already away from this place or the country for over 10 years. And in the end, I created this process for myself to be able to connect with the objects. I wanted to touch them and sort of engage with them physically. And and also, you know, my grandfather is a hoarder, and he has many objects just sleeping in the basement. So I was able to work with them and observe them quite closely. So I ended up bringing the objects to the rooftop of the house, which is also my background. My virtual background is the rooftop of this house, and created these piles of folding and unfolding piles of that has this portrait of skeletal sort of dwelling that consists of this household objects. And I found these objects very familiar and also very foreign to me, because they practically don't belong to me. They belong to my grandfather and my grandmother and their life history, but they don't necessarily belong to myself. But they do feel familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. And I had to acknowledge myself being a foreign person in that sense, coming into this house. And what is the sense of belonging in that situation is already sort of quite complicated. That's how I relate to these objects. So then I find that the work itself, the process itself that I went through in creating this work was largely about my effort to reconnect and reconstruct my relationship with them, but also demystifying the nostalgic or the illusion of the knowledge that I have about these objects or about the house, because I don't necessarily know them. Like, I probably remember them. I know them through my recollections, but I know them through my own perception, but I don't necessarily live with them on a daily basis. I don't feel at home with them. It's basically a mystified conception of what they are. So then this project allowed me to see it in actuality, or at least make an effort to see it in actuality. And one thing that I sort of learned through making this work was this idea of mystification or illusion of home kind of started to disintegrate, because when I was actually there in present tense, it felt like my home was Canada. You know, like, so it was like that mystification sort of transferred over to my life in Canada versus now and then the reality that I'm actually confronting. So this sort of like sense of time that goes back and forth, and how it uses the recollection as a resource to create this sense of home and the illusion of home was quite interesting for me as a learning process. And at the same time, the objects are the physical sort of traces of time that endures the time, that potentially could stand as unchanged and unmodified, and through this, you know, the window of time. And this is the thread. The objects are the thread that sort of connects my past, present, and potentially the future if they stay there, if the house still stands there. But another piece of information was when I was making this work, the house was in the danger of disappearance because they were on the debate of the government trying to make a public pool in the place, and they were asking my grandparents to sell it, and they ended up refusing it, but it was a debate, and the disappearance of this house made a sort of urgency for me to go back to it and make this work. So the sense of urgency that I felt was also quite interesting in relation to this place. And formally, I think the photographs, the series of these photographs stand as a documentation of my performance or intervention with the objects, the learning process of the object. But as a form, I think I was aiming for a form that would give this sense of mobility and stasis at the same time. So this contradictory status of being transportable, but at the same time, because all the objects are, heavy and with the brick and everything, it just gives you the idea that it is stationary and static there. And also the strings that sort of wraps them together loosely reminds you of sort of a pile, the moving pile that you see quite often in, I think in East Asian countries or in South Korea, they move like that, like in exposed sort of truck, you would see everybody's belonging on the truck on the highway. So it was loosely sort of inspired by that form. And I consider now, it's been, I don't know, 6 years since I made this work. And I consider that this work now as my self-portrait and the portrait of the couple who lived there, and the portrait of the place itself or the house that it situates, that it sort of that becomes a habitat of this object. And okay, there you go. And yeah, so the process was I was making this sort of very basic, evocative living space in the rooftop, and then sort of folding the piles back together into a moving pile every day for 2 weeks, and then document the process or document the result at the end of the session. So the work was ended up containing this series of photographs. I think in total 6 photographs or 7 photographs, including the photo of the house, and the video, 2 channels of the video work. And it consists of this solo exhibition that I presented at Concordia's FUFA gallery. Some documentation shot, and the video work I made at the same time as I was making those piles on the rooftop was about this the interior of the house. The video basically takes you through the interior space and sort of presents you with long take shots of static shots of the objects, of observation on the objects. Do you see my Chrome or still my PowerPoint? Okay. So this is how I do this. Now I understand. Share. Now see the video. Okay, great. So I'm gonna maybe play just a bit. Okay, let me find a good spot. Okay, so the video basically, okay, let me just play maybe from the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna play for maybe 2 minutes. Let me see. Okay, I think we have a Zoom bomb situation. Did you see who's Walter? Hello?
What happened?
I saw someone
Hi.
drawing on the video.
Yeah, I noticed
Walter?
that.
Hello, Walter.
Do you know Walter or?
No, I don't. Okay, he's here, but I don't know if it was a mistake or did he get out?
Yeah, he left the room.
Okay, that's very okay. Let me.
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Okay, I'm not sure if this was. I'm not sure how. Like, what should we do? Because you know, it could lead to potentially very destructive situation if that's a Zoom bomber. But I just want to see.
So next time when if anyone shares their presentation, there's an option for presenters to stop people from annotating. But for now, I locked the waiting room. I locked the room, so I'm
Okay,
sure.
great.
Sorry, is there a problem?
Oh, hello. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Yes.
I was just listening in, and is there a problem?
Okay.
Oh,
No,
I think
mean-
you accidentally started drawing on the presentation on the left side of the
Oh, I'm sorry.
presentation.
Okay. It's just, it
So
was in my
sorry.
pocket. I'm just listening on my phone and it's in my pocket. So I'll just,
Okay.
I don't know how to prevent that from happening again. Sorry.
Thank you for responding, because we just want to prevent that. It was.
Oh,
Yeah.
Soyang, you're
Soyang,
muted.
you're on mute.
Yeah, I'll put myself on mute and then, I don't know, I'll try not to, I'll just hang on to the phone so it's not in my pocket again.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you
we
so
should
much.
just continue now.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, sorry. So, yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna maybe keep playing 1 more minute. Okay, so basically the video is 20 minutes of very meditative, slow-paced observations of the interior of the house, really focusing on the presence of these objects and how they are actually used and occupying the space. And I think the video itself takes you through the space with such a sort of pause, like a long contemplative process, that you are asked to look at them very closely for a duration of time. So when you go through the space, also there's a sound of cars passing by, and the sound of the wind and slight movements of the objects that are sort of animating the scene. Okay, my secret. And I'm gonna, okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. And by the way, if you want to watch the video, you can just send me an email. I can give you the password. There is a 2-minute trailer that's on my website also, if you're curious about that. And as a cycle of as to wrap up this sort of project, I ended up working on this project for quite a long time, from 2013 to 2015, for 2 years. The last element that I added to the whole project is the project about the house, is this concrete casted model that I titled as Foundation. So this word foundation has a double meaning for me. It's referring to the structural, technical sort of term for the architectural structure that holds the building from the ground, and then also the foundation of the person, or the foundation of the knowledge, cultural knowledge, or the experience, and so on and so forth, in the context of diasporic experience, and how the geographical sort of location has this sort of heavy charged meaning, not because it is located in certain geographical location, but because of this existence of that place, or the sense of the place that I nurture. Although it is a mystified illusion of home, it still informs me to become this being in the world, in the worldly sense. So that was the 2015. I titled it as Memories Are Motionless. This is a quote taken from a book that's called Poetics of the Space by Gaston Bachelard, who is a phenomenologist. I have a hard time pronouncing this word, phenomenologist, and philosopher who beautifully wrote about our experience of space and the sense of place, what constitutes sense of place in sort of sensorial experience, and dreams of things. Okay, so this is the final sort of presentation that was presented at the Concordia University's hall building in the main lobby. And it was a public installation with this concrete casted model with a photograph of the house. And on the other side, I have this video of my documentation of the performance, the video documentation of the performance when I'm making the space and folding the space back together. So that's the project about the house.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we might have to move on to the question time.
Oh, okay. Oh, already. Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. I managed to finish talking about one project, so I think
How many more?
It's okay.
Would you need to finish the presentation?
Oh, I have a whole other
hour.
Yeah, well, I don't have to get into this project, but this is I guess I can briefly introduce the work, and then maybe people can see it on the online. But as an extension to my sort of ongoing interest about home and sense of home and what that means, I actually sort of encountered this development that's happening in South Korea about targeting these Jugong apartment complexes that were built in the early 80s, which I grew up in up until right before my immigration to South Korea. To Canada. And it basically disappeared. The whole apartment complex and the neighborhood disappeared. And now it's a whole new process, whole new place. And I went back to document the process of disappearance of this place, because it does mean a lot to me, the disappearance of this physical space. And I'm still sort of pondering how that impacts my sense of world. So that's the project. And in the end, I wonder about this question: when there is nothing left in the world that takes us back into our already fragile past, what happens to our sense of the world? So it's a question directed to this sort of contemporary culture of very accelerated urban developments, and how we lose places or how we lose this physical remnants of our past. And with the increasing sort of mobility in human mobility in contemporary world, what does that mean to constantly lose those space and lose those place? And also I sort of worry about it putting the diasporic community into some kind of amnesia state, unable to find the process of recollection that is triggered by the physical environment or the activities that relate to physical environments. So yeah, I think we can wrap up the talk there, and I am very happy to receive questions. I thought I was doing well with time, but that's not the case. But it's okay. Okay, we can talk about your responses. Thank you.
So let me mediate the conversation. And in fact, many of the participants took liberty to spontaneously share the comments. I just saw that so many comments like, I like this, I like that, through the chat box going on. It looks beautiful, great. And so despite the fact that I tried to impose a certain structure, well, anyone wanna actually share question and comments, whoever raised hands and things, and if there's a little bit of pause, we can read through those comments in the chat box as well, but you basically left a lot of comments, and so yeah, anyone who wanna come first, please. No silence?
I think Timothy has their hand up.
Yeah, Timothy.
Hi, that was really interesting work. Thank you for sharing. Other than the fact that it's very relatable to me personally, because I'm also an immigrant, I found it quite fascinating how you were talking about the fragility of how these physical past and the archive of it will be gone eventually. I found the documentation and the presentation of it very affirming almost, because they will exist. They haven't existed in our heads until now, but then now you're making it existing in our minds as we're experiencing the work. And it actually made me question a lot of things, even as an artist, when you were talking about you're familiar with these objects, but at the same time you're not. You have to acknowledge that you're not living there and acknowledge that I'm also foreign to these objects while I feel familiar. Have you found, the one question I have is, as you're going through documenting these, and obviously you're making decisions as an artist, have you found yourself kind of being torn between these aesthetics that you're used to? If you want to just own up to it and be like, oh, this is my aesthetic and this is my kind of what is familiar to me, and this is what this is my identity, or were you kind of in the same process where you kind of coming back from Canada being like, oh, I'm also foreign, so like I need to look at these objectively at the same time? I don't know what my question is actually now I think about it, but I found it very interesting that your sense of self in those places was almost like torn in a way, but your presentation was very affirming, and I kind of have more hope that we can document these and have them live on. So thank you for presenting that.
Thank you, Timothy. I think I understand exactly what your question is. So I understand, the way I understood is that how do I deal with the objects that I'm surrounded here, or how I identify with them and how I own them, and like sort of, or when I go back to Korea, do I own that aesthetic that I see in front of me as my own? So that's a very good question that I struggle all the time because I'm an artist who are interested in, making work and making visible traces of my internal, struggle and whatnot. So I decided that I'm a translator of sorts, and now I just acknowledge that I just don't belong to any of those two existing, or to very sort of charged aesthetic. I have to invent my own, and by inventing, meaning like I don't draw anything from blank. I sort of take my foreignness to both of those places and then see what happens when I create something. So this is a challenge that I have right now as an artist, and I have to say that it's a process that I'm working on. But thank you very much for the question.
Yeah, thank you for the great answer. It's almost like I felt displaced and I felt foreign and not at home. But when I was almost so removed from that, I felt a little bit more comfort from that. So thank you.
Great.
So there are a lot of comments, guys. You are leaving comments in the box as if you want to be read. So how should take care of this grassroots comments movements from chat box? Anyone want a table? I think Imoni made a comment, and everyone, Mario, you made a comment, and Haley, you made a comment. Could you just come back one by one, please? Thank you. JB, you
I think
Yeah.
but I think Atsuko has a hand up. I don't know if you can receive the
I
question.
can't see the hands, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Atsuko?
So Atsuko will go first, and then we can answer Maria's comment.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Actually, I was typing in the chat box, so I'm sorry for the duplication. Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation, and I love to visit your website to take a look at more of your work. One thing that struck me was your sensibility of temporality, and it's not the chronological linear flow of time, but something more subtle and more complicated. And I was very curious to ask you about your use of the fan. You use the fan in the installation at your grandparents' place, where you are rearranging, keep rearranging items from the household, and there is a very significant, to me anyway, very very noticeable presence of the fan. And also in the one of the videos that you had shown us, there was obviously the fan rotating or oscillating fans, creating a very very subtle movement in the air, which affects some things in a very, very faint ways. And I wonder if you could comment on the use of the fan in particular, or just more generally your sense of time and how to include time into your artworks, which are essentially spatial. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Atsuko. That's a very interesting question. I never thought about my use of fan before. I think the particular fan that you see in the photo was something that, I don't know, Soyang, maybe you have had something similar in your household when you were growing up in South Korea. That was very common, like blue
we
fan.
Have in Canada as well. We have in Canada.
Yeah,
fan. And by the way,
yeah,
I want to second Ashuko Sasaki's comments. I had the exact same question for some reason, and I just had a very ghostly that the kind of atmosphere that the fan is actually causing. So yeah, looking forward to hear from what Jinyoung have to say.
Yeah, I guess when I was working on the video, I was it's basically a photographer. When a photographer makes a video, it's like a moving photography. So I'm sort of like trying to catch the movement. Also, the movement itself flows through the space as a continuation of things. So then there's the sense of continuation that is sort of in enveloping the whole space. and also, you know, the continuity of time. In general, the concept of the sense of time, that the perception of the time that I have as a diasporic person is very twisted, in a sense that I feel like I have a parallel timeline all the time. So I have a life in South Korea somehow, I have a life in Toronto, I have a life in Montreal. Like it all goes through a parallel, a sense of parallel time. And then the idea of past and present sort of gets aligned or shaken up whenever I go back to those places, because I am encountered with physical presence of my existence or my past existence or whatever. So it's a shuffling, it's a sense of shuffling time. And I try to somehow represent that in my work by making videos mostly. So I also make a lot of videos. You're welcome to visit my website. I'm gonna put it in the chat at the end of the talk and watch them. Yeah, if you're interested. But thank you for the question. The fan is, yeah, I'm gonna think more about that. I like fans.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Are you Professor Sasha? Are you a professor from that I communicated with? Ashuko?
Well, yeah, we exchanged email. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much for visiting and wonderful questions. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank
Are you
you.
satisfied with the answer, or do you want to add?
This is great. Yes, thank you very much, and I'm glad that you also thought about yeah, the same issue. So thank you very much.
I just found. Please go ahead. The fan is like animating the space after everyone disappeared, and so it was quite haunting in many ways. I was very convinced by the your capturing of the fan, the very cheap, old-fashioned, ubiquitous fan in those households that I grow up with also. And yeah, many other comments, to be honest, and please come. Yeah, we don't have time to waste. Guys, come please.
We have Arvin.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jessica.
And there's a question in the chat from Maria Kim. I'll just read it out. It says, thank you for sharing such beautiful works, deeply personal and processed. How does dealing with the past, spaces, environments, homes alter or inform or shape the way you relate to the home-lived spaces in present? Are there any singular objects you keep with you to remind you of these experiences? If so, can you share what they are and how the values might change through time? Thank you, Maria.
Very, very good questions. I personally am not a person who's overly attached to objects. I think it's also has to do with this condition of like having to move around and not having roots, not sort of settled anywhere, necessarily like feeling settled anywhere, that I cannot invest a lot of meanings to the object. So it's a paradoxical sort of position that I have in relation to the material world. Yeah, I relate to my everyday life surrounding myself with very sort of temporary objects, IKEA furnitures and like, cheap lamps and stuff, because, and also I don't keep much for myself too. So yeah, it's an interesting question that I'm not necessarily interested in keeping the past objects to remind of the days that has passed. It's more for me to be surrounded by them in a physical environment, aka locations, so geographical situations, or like sort of interior space of a certain sensibilities. So I'm more sort of invested in that sense to observing or building sensibilities that are sort of in line with my understanding, with my experience of the world, or that are closest to the feeling of familiarity for me. If so, can you share what they are? And okay, so If I can share what they are, how value might change through time. Yeah, nothing comes to my mind as I have already. It's a response. Yeah, I don't. My cats, maybe. Sorry, my cats are not objects, but yeah, I'm not overly attached to things. So that's my response.
I have a question, guys. Am I muted or not?
No.
No, am I not muted? What's the time we are doing? How are we doing with the time right now? How many minutes we have in terms of?
Yeah, we unfortunately it's best if we move on because we're
really, because I just because for some reason I can't see the hands, but I just want to read out beautiful comments left in the chat box quickly. So Jinyoung Park, everyone remind me of my family, lovely. And Imoni Man, same here. I came from a textile family in Montreal where we came together from Cambodia. Such a beautiful images and amazing. I love this transportation of the domestic to exterior realm. That's a good point. So attracted to the rope linking those objects. Yeah, Jessica. Haley, yeah, the rope really evoked the feeling of binding together unrelated objects through experience. Imoni, this assemblage operating on so many levels. Very good point. And the team already asked questions. So Jamie, this was a very mediative process and interesting how it all brought the individual object to life, really giving those works attention and remembering their occupation in the house as almost like cohabitant to the house. You guys have a lot of time to write those things while you're running forums. Excited to see those entire video. I will message you, okay. Team, you already asked questions. Jessica, and Mina, Maria Kim already asked the question, right? Ashiko Sasaki, thank you. Yeah, found it quickly through the, yeah, it struck me most importantly, your friend. Consciousness of temporality, yeah, you already asked the question, not necessarily chronological flow, but wonderful. Yeah, there was dazzling amount of interesting comments. I just didn't want the Jinyoung misses this and then want to share because it's all recorded for archiving. So are we safe to now? Oh, do you have a comment?
There's I've been there to had hand up for quite a while. I'm just feeling bad about not having that question. Hi.
Hi, sorry, just a quick question. I know we're trying to move on. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for that presentation. So many aspects of your work really resonated for me, especially the rope, which is something that I'm wondering about, because you had mentioned that people use the rope to pack things up when moving. And I know that, so my family immigrated here from India and they did the same thing back there with like using the rope. And my grandfather, like even now when he's visiting back home, he'll pack up his things in a suitcase and then he'll like wrap the suitcase with rope. Even though like there's a zipper and there's a lock, you don't need to wrap it in rope. But there seems to be this sort of almost like embodied trust in the rope as something that holds things together and that act of like security and whatever. So I was just wondering if there are certain objects that change for you depending on the space that they're in. Like, do they take on new meaning, or are there some things that always just seem to stick?
Interesting question. And rope, yes, I've it's not a conscious decision, but it seems that this kind of thread is always a recurring sort of theme in my work, a recurring material in my work that sort of wraps things together. Some kind of a reassurance of making a space for myself, I think, or a possession of myself for that or desire, expression of some kind of desire to make possessions. The objects do change. I think the objects, if I really am attached to them, doesn't really change meaning, even if it changes the location. But the objects that I see of sort of having a similar sensibility, sort of like South Korean 90s, 80s sensibility encountered in North American situation, they do change quite a lot of contextually how they are received, right, into the world. So like the way I receive it doesn't really change, but the way it presents itself to the world and how it is perceived is changed. So I think I really am fascinated by that shift or the translation that happens of the meaning of the object or the cultural knowledge that is left in the objects, or that are transmitted to the general sort of population of who doesn't know East Asian sort of or South Korean history, how they perceive those things. But at the same time, like the objects that we deal with every day, it's very generic. They're mass produced, and we've seen them somewhere, similar objects somewhere in the, you know, in IKEA or in like secondhand store or whatever. So I find that objects are quite significant in a way, though, that connects us together somehow as people or diasporic like communities, especially. They become this sort of agent for knowledge or foundation or sense of place. So I'm not sure if that's the response to your question, but thank you.
Yeah,
so
no,
much
that
for
was
the question.
great. Thank you.
I just found the
Thank you.
question fascinating. I have lots of things to add. It's a similar type of cultural behavior, but let's just move on for now. Yeah, interesting doubling of different culture is happening. Yes, like the roping around the suitcase. Yeah, I see a lot of in different contexts. Thank you very much, Jinyoung. That was very touching, powerful, engaging presentation. So
Thank
we're
you.
going to move on to the next speaker.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Co-host
present.
Yes,
Yes,
Haley.
present the next Haley.
Yeah, so